Coming up on tonight's broadcast, OSU smoking ban under scrutiny, OSU fashion show, and Washington legalizes gay marriage. All that and more on tonight's broadcast of the Beaver News.
Happy Valentine's Day and welcome to your Tuesday night edition of the Beaver News. I'm Brenda Ivey.
And I'm Mary Johnson. On September 1st of this year, Oregon State will implement a smoke-free policy on campus, reports Evan Anderson of the Daily Barometer. The smoking ban is set to extend from Monroe Avenue to Weston Boulevard and from 15th to beyond 35th. Last year, a 13-member smoke-free task force gathered preliminary information to present to President Ed Ray. Shortly after, the decision was made to implement the ban in fall 2012. Stacey Edwards, the director of the Smoke-Free Initiative, said, quote, "The first year we're going to emphasize education. It's going to take some time," end quote. Administration is going to be putting up signs in restricted areas and provide information about the policy. The smoke-free policy is an administrative rule, not a law, and will not be enforced by Oregon State Police. It will be enforced by public safety.
Living here in the Pacific Northwest, we find ourselves located near some awe-inspiring volcanoes, such as Mount St. Helens. Located on the Cascade portion of the Ring of Fire, several volcanoes dot the landscape, each with their own explosive history, all that seems except for one. At a towering 11,000 feet above sea level, Mount Hood is probably the only volcano in the region without a fiery tail, and scientists have finally figured out why. As reported by the university, a recent study done by the College of Ocean and Atmospheric Sciences has gone to show that Mount Hood simply has a different way of exploding. In 1980, Mount St. Helens erupted with tremendous force, spewing ash and debris over hundreds of miles. Mount Hood, on the other hand, has a much less inspiring version of an explosion. Instead of building up enough force for a single blast, the magma from Mount Hood oozes out and creates what is known as a magma dome. Once the magma dome cools, it becomes too great of a weight for the mountainside to handle and simply collapses on itself. The mountain has been repeating this process for thousands of years. Lead author of this study, Allison Kolzar, had this to say about the report, quote, "Mount Hood is really cool because it is such a model for one extreme of volcanic behavior. It may not have the colorful history of Mount Masma or St. Helens, but it has its own niche among volcanoes, and now we better understand why it behaves the way that it does."
The Pride Center is taking a more inclusive approach to Valentine's Day with their, quote, Reclaiming Valentine's Day event, reports Nancy Buchanan of the Daily Barometer. With the media portraying this holiday as one for only heterosexual relationships, it can be difficult for those in other types of relationships, from those who are single to those who in other genders and sexualities. Valentine's Day should be a holiday for them, too. This event is less about protesting Valentine's Day than opening it up to more people. Amanda Wood, Pride Center Activities Director, said, quote, "Getting away from the hallmark idea of it." From 2 to 4 p.m. today, the Pride Center offered food and craft supplies for anyone who wanted to come and visit and make a card for the one they love. Other Valentine's Day activities at the Pride Center included speed friending from 5 to 7 p.m. tonight, as well as watching an episode of Glee from 8 to 9 p.m. that will be themed for the holiday.
OSU's annual Recycled Fashion Show will be held in the Memorial Union Ballroom this Thursday. This event is put on by the OSU Fashion Organization and has been aptly named Green is the New Black. Past themes have included dumpsters to diamonds and 20 years and all that rubbish. Each garment is made exclusively from recycled and repurposed materials. The doors will be open to the ballroom for general admission starting at 6 p.m., with the show scheduled to start promptly at 7. Organizers recommend getting there early in order to find a good seat. For those unable to make it to the show, it is also going to be streamed live right here on KBVR. For more information on this or any other OSU fashion show, contact the OSU Fashion Organization. And now we go to reporter Britney Greenfield for a report from the OSU Pride Center.
I'm sorry, we're having technical difficulties this evening. Oregon State's Transit and Parking Services has started a new online service that allows students to obtain more parking tickets, reports Amanda Entel of the Daily Barometer. In order to make the current system more manageable, the new service provides students and faculty an opportunity to obtain parking permits and escape from long lines and bothersome paperwork at the TAPS office. The online system essentially lets staff and students buy parking permits, pay tickets and traffic fines, and ask questions on the TAPS website. Another reason the system went online was the increase in students. Hank Kemper, TAPS supervisor, said, quote, "It's a very tough situation, so we're really hopeful for this new system," end quote. Despite the negative reaction, Kemper assures that the current and future students that parking will be compensated. For more information about the new system or parking plans, visit TAPS office located at Adams Hall. We're heading into our first short break, but don't go anywhere because when we come back, we return with a sports update and a look at your local forecast. Stay tuned.
Welcome back here to KBVR News. According to a recent research project conducted by Oregon State University, by altering levels of estrogen in garter snakes, it is actually possible for males to be treated as females during mating season. Estrogen is a chemical found in almost every single living animal species on Earth, primarily found in the females of a species, and is an essential chemical in regards to mating. In a test, scientists implanted male garter snakes with small estrogen capsules that raised their level of estrogen to that of their female counterparts. As reported by the university, what they found was that when it came time for mating, other male snakes could not distinguish these false females from true females, and sometimes found the imposers more attractive than the actual females. During the copulation process, snakes lick each other in order to find out information about another snake. Because of the intense pheromone cocktail that a reptile such as the garter snake produces, one lick can help determine another snake's age, health, sex, size, and reproductive health. What is so fascinating about this study is that the snake's senses can be confused by the addition of the exact same amount of estrogen that a female snake would produce.
Every year, the Greek chapters at Oregon State holds their own respective philanthropies, which aims to raise money to help counter a major issue, reports Martin Ford of the Daily Barometer. One of the most successful philanthropies at OSU has to be Kappa Delta's Mock Rock. Mock Rock's proceeds goes to the prevention of child abuse. Their goal this year is to raise $35,000. Last year, they raised just under $32,000. Each sorority or fraternity donates their money by checks, buying Mock Rock shirts, buying performance tickets, Mary Kay products, and buying Papa's Pizza. The competition begins Thursday, March 1st with the annual Mock Rock event. This event only continues to highlight the characterization of Greek life as not just a social organization, but one that helps the community and strives to support the greater Corvallis area.
The battle for equal rights in terms of marriage has won over 2 more states this week as Washington State and New Jersey move to legalize gay marriage. Yesterday, Washington State Governor Chris Gregory officially signed into law the above-mentioned proposal, entering Washington into the list of states that recognizes same-sex marriage, which includes Massachusetts, Vermont, New Hampshire, Connecticut, Iowa, New York, and the District of Columbia. Governor Gregoire said, quote, "We have finally said yes to marriage equality. It gives same-sex couples the same rights to a marriage license as heterosexual couples," end quote. Meanwhile, on the other side of the country, the exact same bill is going into assembly in New Jersey. Many people in the state are hopeful that the measure will pass. However, as reported by CNN, several groups are fighting the bill and the newly established law. In Washington, several right-wing political groups are threatening to place the measure back on the ballot in November to try to shoot it down. In New Jersey, the bill rests in the hands of the 118 members of the New Jersey legislature. While some New Jersey natives have suggested that the bill will be voted on by the whole of the state, many people remain confident that the bill will pass.
A Rhode Island hospital has been ordered to pay out $5.3 million for ordering unnecessary overnight hospital stays, reports CNN. $2.6 million will go to the federal government and $2.7 million in double and triple damages for ordering the unnecessary hospital stays. Federal investigators determined that between January 2004 and at the end of 2009, 260 patients were admitted unnecessarily after receiving stereotractic radiosurgery. So far, Rhode Island Hospital has yet to comment. We now go to Mackenzie Allen for a look at your local forecast.
In an interesting turn of events, the Occupy Washington, D.C. movement is getting a taste of its own medicine as anti-protesters set up their own encampment. The anti-protesters refer to their movement as the Occupy Washington, and are using the same tactics that the original group used in an effort to simply make the Occupy movement go away. As reported by CNN, the Take Back the Park campaign is spearheaded by two conservative think tanks of the Washington area, Public Policy Research and FreedomWorks. The big reason behind the counter-movement is due to the excessive amount of money the Occupy protesters are costing the D.C. area. Chairman of the Take Back the Park movement, Amy Reiner, said, quote, "The occupiers are fundamentally undemocratic. They want the public to agree to whatever it is they want, even though they can't or won't articulate it, or else they'll commit crimes, infest cities with rats, cost police overtime, and refuse to go away," end quote. Noon yesterday, several Occupy protesters tried communicating with the Occupy protesters, presenting their arguments on common grounds between the movements, which was positively responded to. An Occupy Washington protester, simply known as James, said that the interaction was a big step towards claiming, quote, "Every resolution begins with common ground," end quote. Anti-protesters plan to keep up their fight until mid-March.
A small community in Minnesota is mourning the loss of an 18-year-old football star who died in a silo accident on Saturday, reports CNN. Craig Winnemankin's body was found in silo on his family's farm, just outside of Melrose, Minnesota. Leroy Ludwig, Winneman's cousin, said, quote, was out for his family, he was out for his friends, and he cared a lot. He was a student and athlete at Melrose High School, and by the looks of his Facebook, you can tell that he was well-liked and respected. Ludwig said he was not to know the circumstances of what led to his death, but adding that he knows his cousin will be missed. It is now time for our final break of the evening, but we will look at more of our national and international stories in just a minute. Welcome back to the Beaver News, right here live on Channel 26. Edgar Balderrama from Greeley, Colorado, was found alive after being in the obituaries in the Greeley Tribune, reports CNN. The sister is said to be responsible for the fake obituary. She made up a lie to get out of work. The relations between the siblings are now very strained. Erica Balderrama's wife had just seen him an hour before she was told her husband had passed away. She was sent to went to the Greeley Tribune and found out the obituary was indeed written by Balderrama's sister. The Greeley Tribune editorial staff has now renewed their policies and procedures for accepting obituaries to make sure this type of situation never happens again.
In Colombia, a new way of detecting explosives is being investigated using animals as training explosive hunters. While in the past, dogs, with their superior sense of smell, have traditionally been the animal of choice when it comes to bomb hunting, a new animal is making its way into the field, the rat. In Colombia, due to excessive incidences with landmines, IEDs, and car bombs, rats have been bred and trained to detect explosive materials. The Colombia police force has adopted these rats in an effort to cut back on expenses, but has found that the rats' capabilities match, if not exceed, the capabilities of their canine counterparts, but at a fraction of the price. Since bomb dogs first started being used in Colombia, many dogs were killed by accidentally setting off the landmines they were trying to sniff out. However, at less than 1 pound, these rats have the same sense of smell and are cost-effective. While an average rat only has a lifespan of 3 to 4 years, their exponential breeding rate means that their productive offspring will be plentiful. As reported by CNN, the project was being led by Luisa Fernanda Mendez Pardo, a veterinarian who specializes in canine explosive detection training. In regards to the study, Mendez says, quote, As a researcher, I can tell you that this project has exceeded the expectations we had at the beginning. We were able to condition the rats to follow simple verbal commands. We have also trained them to not be afraid of their human handlers, end quote. Since the beginning of the project 4 years ago, they have trained over 70 bomb-detecting rats.
A faulty thermometer is likely to blame for the rise in temperature of a nuclear reactor at Japan's Fukushima Daiichi plant on Monday, reports CNN. This makes it 1 year after the devastating earthquake and tsunami triggered a nuclear meltdown. The plant's operator, Tokyo Electric Power Company, said the temperatures inside the reactor pressure vessel of Unit 2 has been gradually increasing, hitting a high of 89.2 degrees Celsius on Monday. Because of the error margin of 20 degrees for the gauges takes the temperature above 100 degrees Celsius, one of the preconditions for a cold shutdown. An expert says that the faulty temperature gauge inside of the Unit 2 vector is most likely the cause for the higher heat reading.
Following a day of devastating violence, CNN is reporting that 4 people have been killed and 28 wounded in the aftermath of explosions in Iraq earlier today. There were several explosions in both the city of Baghdad and Mosul, in a city about 220 miles north of Baghdad, according to authorities. Initial reports suggest that 3 of the wounded were Iraqi soldiers, with the rest of the victims being civilians. In spite of today's tragedies, officials say overall violence in Iraq has dropped drastically since the peak of the sectarian conflict between 2005 and 2007.
An Italian court sentenced 2 officers of a Swiss company to a 16-year prison terms on Monday after the deaths of about 2,000 workers who were exposed to asbestos, according to CNN. The executives were accused of failing to protect workings of the company's 4 Italian factories. They were ordered to pay $105 million to 600 people, including former workers and residents who lived near the plants. Bruno Pesci, the leader of Italy's Asbestos Victims Association, attended Monday's meeting and said, quote, "It was a very emotional moment. People were crying because of the tension and then the happiness," end quote. Barry Castleman, an environmental scientist from the United States, said, quote, "The importance of today's sentence is that it established personal criminal responsibility of the protection firm's executives, who will now learn their lesson."
The assumed future leader of China, Xi Jinping, met with President Obama earlier today to discuss the continued relationship between China and the United States. CNN reports that Xi is currently his country's vice president and is expected to soon become president and replace current president Hu Jintao. Obama said that the primary reason for the visit was to create, quote, "cooperative partnership based on mutual respect and mutual desires," end quote. In addition to raising human rights concerns, adding that, quote, "We tried to emphasize that because of China's extraordinary development over the last 2 decades, that with expanding power and prosperity also carries increased responsibilities," end quote. Xi is currently on a 5-day trip into the States and will be meeting with other senior government officials in the days to come.
Abu Qatada, a radical Jordanian cleric who has been released from a British jail on bail, reports CNN. He is said to be an inspiration to September 11th hijacker Mohammed Attan and other terrorists who have been released. Qatada is now 51 and has been in a British jail since 2005, while the government works to deport him back to Jordan, where, after he sought asylum in the United Kingdom after claiming he was tortured by Jordanian authorities, he was convicted in absentia in involvement of terrorist conspiracies. Immigration court said on Friday that the government was running out of time to justify Qatada's continued detention. The British government claims that Qatada is at a national security risk, who has raised money for terrorist groups, including ones linked to Osama bin Laden, and publicly supported the violent activities of those groups. And now we take a look at sports.
Oregon State basketball standout Jared Cunningham has been nominated for Geico Player of the Year for his reverse alley-oop dunk against Howard back in December. Over the course of 8 weeks, 4 plays a week are selected from the college season as Geico Play of the Year nominees. The 4 nominees are then pitted against each other in a fan vote on the Geico Best of College Basketball fan page on Facebook. The winners of each week will then be put to a week-long vote, and the Geico Play of the Year will be announced on March 25th during CBS's coverage of March Madness. Cunningham's finish is up against an alley-oop from Michigan's Tim Hardaway Jr., a game-winning step-back 3 from Northern Iowa's Anthony James, and a powerful drive and finish by Iowa's Roy Devon Marble. Voting ends at 8:59 a.m. this Monday. The Oregon State wrestling team, ranked 16th in the nation, split its two contests at the regional Matt Mayhem tournament in Ames, Iowa this Sunday. OSU started the day with a 27-12 victory over host Iowa State, but fell 12-14 to the top-seeded Iowa Hawkeyes, who are ranked 5th nationally. A win over Iowa would have sent the Beavers to the National Duels Final Four next Sunday. Redshirt sophomore R.J. Pino won both of his bouts at the tournament, improving his personal record on the season to 25-19, and also got his 19th fall of the season, tying OSU alum Marty Ryan's 1978 school record for most in the single season by a sophomore. Redshirt sophomore Scott Sakaguchi also won both of his bouts, which put him at 31 wins on the year, and makes this the first time he has surpassed the 30-win mark at Oregon State. Senior Clayton Jackson moved into 12th place on the Oregon State career wins list by winning his 113th and 114th career bouts. Next up for Beavers wrestling is a trip to Boise State for the Pac-12 championships on February 25th. Baseball media outlet Perfect Game USA has ranked the Oregon State baseball team at number 17th in the nation in their final preseason poll prior to the start of the college season this Friday. The Beavers are among 5 Pac-12 teams ranked in the top 25. Florida tops the list at number 1, followed by Pac-12 foe Stanford at number 2. Arizona and Arizona State are ranked ahead of the Beavers at number 11 and number 14, respectively, while UCLA sits just behind the Beavers at number 19. Perfect Game also predicts a third-place finish for Oregon State in the Pac-12 and has selected junior pitcher Tony Bryant as a preseason all-conference player. The Beavers baseball season begins this Friday with an away game against UC Santa Barbara. The 80th Oregon State's Award. Looks like that's all the time we have for tonight. Thanks for joining us.